Hi friends, my name is Megan and welcome to episode 80 of a Naughty Mess Knitting Podcast. Happy Valentine's Day. No matter who you are watching me today, you are my friend. And yes, it is February 13th, which means tomorrow is Valentine's Day. For those of you who, I don't know, celebrate, it's a weird holiday to me. When Mike and I were first dating, we would do lots of, mostly dinners in, because that was more special for us to cook each other something really delicious. And then we had a baby, and so also dinners in, but yeah, I don't know that we'll do much celebrating. I will say, you've heard me talk about this. We were supposed to be going to Portland this weekend, and our friends who we were going to go visit all came down with the flu this week. So we didn't want to spread any germs. And even though half of them are feeling on the mend, we are not going to go down there. We are going to stay up here and do some hopefully fun inside activities because it's supposed to be a cold one again. So I jumped right into that. But hi, everyone. For anyone who's new, my name is Megan and I am a mostly knitter, but also crocheter, spinner, fiber enthusiast, yarn lover, etc. Based out of the Pacific Northwest. I live just north of Seattle with my husband Mike, our daughter Theo, our dog Winter, and my mom Cindy. And we have been enjoying some very cold weather. It's been pretty fun. Theo made her first snowman last week because it was really snowy and it was nice cold pack, like kind of wet snow. So she made her first snowman and it was the cutest. She obviously didn't participate very much in the actual snowman build. She is too. But she had a lot of fun and the dog had a lot of fun chomping on snowballs. That's what she likes to do. If you throw her a snowball, she bites it. It's pretty cute. So we did a lot of that and also enjoyed. It was mostly nice and cold after that. Not it's cleared the roads, but we still have snow in our backyard, so that's pretty fun. Anyway, here we are. We're here to talk about knitting, not the weather. So I have no finished objects this week. I've got progress on several. I have only one new cast on, even though I meant to have 3. So let's talk about it. And I have a new spin. So lots of fun things, and hopefully I'm hoping for a shorter episode. I make no promises. Okay, let us chat. I first want to talk about what I'm wearing. So this week, I pulled out a pink knit for you all. I haven't worn this one on the podcast since I first finished it, so I figured it was a good time since I don't have an FO and it's pink. So this is the Metropolitan Pullover by Tori Yu, who is Tori Knits NYC on Instagram. It is a top-down contiguous construction, which I'll talk about that in a second. It has this little thing here, but it's supposed to be a minimal finish, clean lines knit. I'm not going to really stand up. I'll put a picture, here or whatever will be up of me wearing this so you can see it in real life. But let's talk about the fit a little bit because, again, you can see there's quite a lot of room in here, and you can see from the picture too. I meant to make a size 4, which was 48 inches. I did want it to be a little bit, what I wanted was I wanted this, so there is this little design here, which is how you make the shoulder cap essentially with yarn overs, and I wanted that to sit more like here on this knit, but this was my first new to knit and I just didn't wrangle my gauge as much as I should have. So I was super off gauge and I ended up with 13 stitches in 20 rows, which is definitely not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be like 16 or 17 or something. So I ended up with a 56-inch bust. Most of the other measurements are like ish to pattern. My arms are a little bit bigger, obviously, but I went down the right sleeve counts. I did do the I-cord finish. I did all the finishes per pattern. I would do this again and I'd make a couple of changes. I think we've talked about this for the most part, but now that I've worn it a lot, I can tell you, I love this. As far as like, I don't often do super oversized things because I don't always love how they fit me. But I think because this fabric is super drapey and nice and it's not stiff at all and it's quite breathable, even though it's very warm because it is that nudiden, which is an unspun and a suri held together. It has like really nice drape. So yeah, I guess let's talk about it. So nudiden, I don't know the color because I bought this off of D-Stash and she did not tell me. And Haven from Surrey, from Woolberry in the old Surrey base, so the 328 yard base, which is just like a normal Surrey silk blend. This is, and I used the recommended needle size per pattern, though I ended up with a much bigger gauge. If I had gone down in gauge, it would be okay, but because this blooms so much, I feel like it would be maybe too warm, so I'm not mad about it. But if I made it again, I would try a size 4 again. I would like to see what the neckline and stuff fits like if my shoulder is really over here. Like, would this neckline just be a little bit tighter? Probably. This is a rolled neckline, so you pick up and then you do a couple of stockinette rows and then you just bind off. I think the shaping in this too, like I feel like it's doing not an odd thing, but I want it to be like more rounded maybe. So I would maybe just pick up a slightly different ratio. Also, it just depends on how that looks. I would not mind also if this was either just an I-cord or if this had a small, again, depending on how the neckline changes. If it was actually 48 inches, I think it'd be in quite a bit more. And I think an I-cord would be great. If it felt wide still, I would maybe do like a very short, like 6 rows of ribbing and then just like single and then do a sewn bind off. I would maybe do also ribbings on the hems. I don't dislike an I-cord. This one got really tight because of the way that the nudiden is. It like wanted to get really small. So it's nice because it keeps like, it's kind of balloony, right? But it keeps it off of my hand. So I don't have them like falling onto my hand. So that's okay. And the I-cord bind off on the bottom is fine. I did that a lot looser and I did that with needles, not the Cordsmith. And yeah, I mean, maybe I would keep that finish. I would have separate, again, these don't all match. This is rolled. These are all I-cord. I would do something different. But I really think doing this in a DK yarn or a true fingering and a fluff would give me a different experience. And that might be not better, just more what I had expected the first time around. So I would do it and I would like it in a smaller size. I would like that shoulder to fit like this. I love the way that this does fit and it's very freeing and it's fun. And for whatever reason, I said this before in my other, in my like recap episode, it makes me feel very like cute. So I'm not mad about it. It doesn't make me reevaluate whether I do like baggy things in general. I don't gravitate towards them as much. I like things that are a little bit more fitted on my body, but I think an oversized fit has a place now and again. I just don't want that to be my whole wardrobe. That's not how I like to dress, and that's okay. Oh, sorry. And let me just go over. So the contiguous construction, just for anyone who doesn't know what that means, if you didn't see this episode, essentially what it means is I'm doing it right now in this other knit, so I can explain it in that knit too when you see it, but you start with like your back and like a little bit of your shoulder and like one front sleeve or one front stitch. And then this whole front piece is created, and you can see it here, is created in a slope from adding stitches. So you're just going back and forth and essentially you're doing short rows and adding stitches to the front on both sides. Then eventually you join across and you've got sort of a front shoulder piece, but you don't have very many arm stitches. And so what you do then is you just rapidly create kind of, as you're doing increases in the round, you're not doing raglan increases on each side. You're just creating a sleeve piece. I'm doing a little bit different because of it's like a set-in sleeve for the other thing I'm making, but that idea will translate to what we're talking about for the next one. But yeah, so it's a really interesting construction to do it that way. And then you also like do a couple of raglan increases at the bottom just to give the fullness of the underarms. I didn't need to do it in this size necessarily because it ended up so big, but that is like for fit. So if you're interested in trying that, I think this one is a lower risk one, because once you get in the round, you're like, oh, I kind of understand what's happening. But you have to trust the process if you've never done one before and you're like, what am I making? Like, what is happening? And you kind of create like an inset, like saddle shoulder. So you create this one piece that continues across, and that's where the sleeve stitches are created. You know, there's markers and all this stuff to explain it, but I think that the explanation, she doesn't necessarily put a ton of explanation in like what you're doing, but like the instructions were really easy to follow. So overall, I still think this pattern is advanced beginner or like adventurous beginner friendly. And I think the yarn itself is holding up really well. I do have some fuzzies, but overall, I mean, I wear it quite a lot, and I've really only pulled off, you know, like a handful. You can see, well, you can't really see them. I've got like this big of a fuzzy. Like, it's not very big. I'm not getting huge pilling. And I really like, I've worn it just like around my house too, which is when I'm doing chores and other things. So where I feel like I would get more pilling. Okay, let's front load this episode with some pink things. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is my first whip. One we have seen several times before, everyone. And I feel like I'm slogging through these sleeves a little bit. Maybe just because I've said this before. One of the reasons I don't like to finish the whole body and then do sleeves of anything, and you can't help it when you're doing something bottom up, which this is that I don't typically feel like I get stuck on Sleeve Island, because I do them partway through the body, and then I know that that piece means I'm almost done and I can rush through the body, or, you know, then I just have that one more thing to conquer. And for whatever reason, that's mentally more satisfying to me. Doing a whole body and then just having sleeves left, I guess I get why people get stuck on Sleeve Island. I don't feel stuck there. I just do feel like these sleeves are a little bit feeling sloggy. They're not, because like honestly, there's not that many stitches compared to the body, and the pattern is fine. I like doing it in the round, so I just need to get over it and finish them. I think part of it is that I know I'm gonna have to block before I do cuffs, and that feels like a mental barrier. But here is my very pink, although I did ask my husband last night what color he thought this was, and he said purple, and I said it's a pinky purple. I would have said pink, but yeah. Anyway, so I was midway through, there's a little stitch marker here, sleeve 1, which is my left sleeve, last week. And that is now paused because I finished all of the decreases, maybe -1. And I measured it and I was like, okay, I'm not quite to the like 13 inches I need or something before I do cuff. So, and I think I need to do 2 more decreases. But I also feel like this is a little wide for me. So even if I do the cuff in 2x2 and I'll cinch it in a little bit, I don't know if I like how wide this is. So I was thinking about changing the rate of my decrease. I've got like a set way that I've been doing them since it's supposed to be by measurement, and I'm not going to measure every time or anything to put a new decrease in. So I think I might do like 3 more decreases over a shorter period of knitting, you know, a shorter amount of repeats of the pattern to get to like 1 size smaller in the cuff, because you have to do by 4s. Okay. Before I decided that anyway, I was like, well, let me just get this sleeve at least to this point. So I'm about halfway there. And so, or maybe a little bit more. I think I have like 9 decreases and this one has like 16 or 15. So I'm almost halfway there, a little over. So it's coming. I'm not making progress, but what I've been doing, because and this is maybe why it's feeling so sloggy, but I haven't wanted to work on this as much as some of my other projects. Even though I do want it to be done. It's a real ironic thing happening over here. But so I have been just making myself do 2 repeats, like 2, they're 5-row repeats. So just 2 of them at a time between project pickups, instead of just working on these for a long time. And that is a thing. Like I tried to work on them for like a while, one night this weekend. And that's why I was working on the other sleeve here. And I just like kept catching myself being on my phone, which I don't love to doom scroll at night or anything. And I was like, oh, okay, that means I'm a little bit bored with this sleeve, so I got to change up the order of how I'm doing it. And so I've just been, you know, made that change. That is a preference for me. And so we are making progress. I didn't say any of the details. And I didn't say any of the details last week either when I realized I was watching this back. That is the Traveler hoodie by Andrew Mowry. We've talked about it a bunch of times. It's up on the top of the screen the whole time, but I will say these words out loud to you. Okay, so some details on that one. I am making it a size 4, which is a 50-inch bust. The recommended ease is 6 to 10 inches, and so this is going to be a slightly more fitted on me too. I was more worried about the yarn. I still don't think I could have done a whole size up because I added length, and so it was fine for me to pick. I've got a good amount of, I have a little bit in the connected longer sleeve, and this is how much I have for the second sleeve. I will use a good bit of this still, so I'm not gonna have a ton left over, maybe like maximum 50 grams. So maybe I could have done a size up. Anyway, I don't really think so because it's like a 4-inch difference, I think. So anyway, I am using 3.75 millimeter needles for the body. I decided not to size up in the sleeve, even though I don't know if you can really tell it. And it is one of Andrew Mowry's recommendations generally. If you're using small circumference needles, sometimes your knitting gets tighter. And so I think possibly, very possibly, my tension is a little bit tighter on the sleeve. But again, this is a lot of sleeve stitches, and I'm not worried about, like, it's probably the only Andrew Mowry pattern I can say this. I'm not worried about the circumference of the upper bicep. So I, like as is in the pattern. So I didn't feel the need to size up a needle or pick up any extra stitches. And so I do think, yeah, like maybe it's a tiny bit tighter, but not really. So I did not size up the needle, even though that is one of her recommendations. So 3.75 for everything, 3.25 for the ribbing, which includes part of the head thing, I think, like the hood encasing. And then I'm using Queensland Collection Rainbow Beach and Boysenberry, which is 100% superwash Australian wool, and as I've said before, is a little bit crunchier of a superwash. So we'll see how it washes. Could be super soft, could still have this stiffness. I don't dislike it for this pattern. I think that maybe we'll keep more of the accordion. I do want it to relax a bit because I need some of the length, but I don't want it to be like flat, you know, or stretch out too much as I'm wearing it. Okay, let's talk about the next pink knit on my needles, which is my, I wanted to be done with this. Okay, so this is why I don't have a finished object, because I found out on Tuesday that we weren't going, and I was so close to finishing this blanket. But you know, I just put it on the back burner because I did a lot this week already, and I don't need to kill myself to finish it because I'm not going to see this friend where this baby's where this baby blanket is going until at least another few weeks. And so we will reschedule our trip. We're just not going to do it right now. Then we've got Rose City and some other stuff coming up, so I don't just have free weekends to go whenever. But this is the These Days blanket. I think this is the front, which it doesn't matter. It's reversible. But you can see here, here's where I was last week. So I did a ton. I would have finished it. I would have finished it yesterday. I would have just worked on this, but instead I spent some time doing a different knit. And I kind of just put this down after I found out on Tuesday. It's still been my desk knit, so I've put in a couple of rows here or there, but I've been doing a lot of big project work, and so I have not had time to, I've not really been in meetings to just sit and knit. So that's okay. Here we are. So I think this is so crazy. So this light is not doing it justice, but in my house last night, in not even great light there, and maybe when I take finished object pictures, I'll like see if I can gently put it outside, but this has all the glowy rainbow colors, and I didn't really realize it because I was just focused on this like pinky peachy color and the green, but it's got like a real like decadent sherbet rainbow vibe, like the whole rainbow. It's really pretty. So, and I just, the colors are a little bit cool in here. So it's washing it out like my ring lights are. So you can kind of see there, like, look at that. It's got a lot of depth. That orange is really showing. There's not really yellow in here, but you can see the pops of the speckles. It's super pretty. So I think I probably need, and my gauge was just a tiny bit off, and this pattern is written for worsted, and this is a DK weight yarn, which I'll talk about in a second, but I'm like just a smidge off on row gauge, so I ended up doing an extra like 3 or 4 of the pattern repeats, and I think I just want to make it a little bit, I think this is 2 pattern, like right now I'm at the correct amount of length, and it's scrunching this way a little bit, so when I block it, I'll more focus on pulling it sideways to give it a little bit extra width. And I will probably add 3 to 4 more just because now I have time. So I'll finish it this weekend for sure. Just be done with it. But again, not killing myself to get it done. I'll just do that, you know, in between other things. But I'm really loving it. The pattern is so squishy. This is by 5410 Studios. Her name is Mary Lee. She has lots of super simple but lovely squishy textures for scarves, maybe some cowls, but definitely scarves and blankets. There's some other things on there, but she's a new to me designer, and this pattern was picked out by my friend. So she this is a friend who does some fiber crafts, and she picked out the pattern and the yarn. The yarn is Lobby and Amy Merino DK, which is 100% superwash merino. I think it's 250 yards for 100 grams, or 250 yards for 115 grams. And it is, so it's really a true DK weight yarn, and it's 100% superwash merino. And it's really lovely, super squishy. This pattern gives like, knit night this week was just me and Jess, and we went to my brother-in-law's bar, and in the dark, like, you know, the colors were not as bright and fun, but I was sitting there working on this, and she's like, wow, I love that texture. And I was like, isn't it like weirdly giving you, and maybe it's like, depends on the light. In here, maybe it just looks like boxes, but it like, there is a half triangle that is garter stitch on each side. And I was like, is it giving you like dragon scale vibes? And she's like, yeah, totally. And I was like, this is rainbow dragon vibes. Anyway, so I'm really enjoying the knit. It's been really fun. This is like the first baby blanket I've knit in a while, and I love knitting a baby blanket. So this is hopeful to me too, because I have a couple big blankets I'd like to knit this year. And so like, but doing a whole thing. So it's been fun. And the color is really enjoyable. Like overall, it's been really nice. And Theo, I sometimes knit on this, at night. I'll put a row or two in while she's like playing or whatever. I don't knit that much with her, like in her play area, because she is a yarn thief, and also because we're playing most of the time. But sometimes after dinner, she really just like chills by herself in her like little teepee area and looks at books and plays with bricks and stuff like that. But the other night I just had it out because it was like right after work, and I was like, I need a flat surface to measure this to see where I am. So I brought it into the play area, and she was like having the best time trying to help me measure. She was not being very helpful, but it was very cute, and she loves this, and she knows it's going to a baby and the baby's name, and so she like has been talking about it, was just asking to measure it even when it's not in the room now. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. And I'm doing the size small for that too. Just, I'm sure that was like on the little, on the little bubble box, but, just so you know. And so it should be 30 by 32, and I'm going to make it 30 by like maybe 36. I think that's probably what I'll end up with. Okie dokie. The next one I am going to talk about is my Ribblesdale Vest. This is a gift knit also. So I've got one so far on the needles. I have one knit for me, two knits for people. I do have a make 9 this year. None of the baby blankets are in the make 9. I have one more baby blanket quantity of yarn coming to me because a friend picked out a specific color palette. And I'm going to start that next week or the week after. This baby is not due for a while, and it's a really simple knit, but it will be a really great desk knit. So I already know I'm going to cast that on. Maybe not next week. It might be the week after, depending on when I can get, depending on when I actually get the yarn, but it's coming to me. So this is though on my make 9. So I've got some garments and some plushies on my make 9. And this one is the first that I will hopefully complete from the make 9. And I say that because I maybe will play yarn chicken with this. I know it's going to be kind of close, but I did a fair amount, again, because I was a little bit panicked once I got to the back panel. I was like, do I have enough yarn? So I will probably finish this week. This is the Ribblesdale Vest, which is a pattern by Lily Kate France, or Lily Kate Makes, on Instagram and YouTube. I really love her patterns. I think they're just, I mean, and not every single one is for me in my wardrobe. Like, maybe I would wear this, though maybe not, but I love the look and pattern. And so it had been in my favorites, and my friend, Sarah, who I'm making this for, I showed her lots of pictures of different vests because that's what she wanted this time around. And, this is the one she picked, and this does feel like her fashion vibe, but this yarn should look familiar. It's what I use for my bell mullet, and this is the leftovers. And I just have the button band to do, and then the armholes are actually just an I-cord, so they'll cinch them up a little bit but not too much. And I will actually do those with the recommended needles because I don't want them to get too tight, which is fine. And the neck, the button band, there is buttons on this. The button band is only like 8 rows, and I have a little bit over a half a ball of yarn, so I should be okay. But that is why I sort of panic knit this. You can see where I was last week, right here. Was not done, and I just wanted to separate for sleeves this week, but the other night, maybe it was 2 nights ago, I finished the back, and then I was like, you know, the front, this is interesting. So the way that you knit this is you knit bottom up, ribbing, you do a decrease round because brioche is bigger than ribbing, and then you, like, gauge wise, and then you just do brioche. And so that was very fun, very easy, flat brioche. Then you do this side because that's like where you end a row, and then you go back and you pick up your back and you do your back panel. And then you have to do a couple of rows of extra decreases for it to sit nicely on your shoulder. And you then connect the right away to your front panel. And then you go back and you have to connect these 2 pieces. Maybe it's the other way around. Whichever way, whichever side. You go back and you finish the little bit that was in the back panel. And then you do your front and you connect those. And it's just a 3 needle bind off. But it's just interesting, you know, instead of doing 2 fronts in the back, or the back and then the 2 fronts, you just do them sort of in a circle to complete. And then you have your little vest. So it's so cute as is. The decreases are really beautiful on this. And so they're at very regular intervals on the front side to build, you know, the V. And then they increase a little bit here to make the shoulder strap not get too skinny too fast. And so they look, you know, they look the same on either side. And that's like really cute. Isn't that so cute? I don't know. I think like structurally it's like very adorable. You also do a couple, though less, on your armpit side. And you also do those in the back, like the same amount as the front on just the armpit side. I think it's the same amount, something like that. And then you get this really beautiful smaller panel, and then you do sort of like a rapid decrease here, though it's not that many stitches because you bind off on the back. So I just really think it's so cute. Okay, yeah, so then the button band. So I mean, maybe I'll finish this one this weekend too if I just have enough mental capacity to do the button band. But the button band seems pretty simple. I read through the instructions last night. You have on your last row of the full body, before you split for sleeves, you put on these 2 markers and on actual stitches, right? And then that is going to be sort of it's like the miter corner, so that you can have like a truly, it sits like it goes up straight, and then it, you know, gives you a little bit of a square, I guess, so that it follows the V-neck line really nicely. So that's all that is. But and that's the only, like, that's the hard part. Plus there's buttonholes, but because this is ribbed sideways, it's only, you know, a couple yarn overs, I think is how she does the buttonhole. So again, should be pretty simple. And then you do I-cord armholes. I'm going to wait on that. I'm going to do the button band first, make sure I have enough yarn. Not only because, quite frankly, I think the armholes could just stay like this. They might be a little bit wider than necessary, but the way that the stitches are, like, they look beautiful. You really don't need to do anything. The I-cord gives it more structure and strength, and I would do them. But if I ran out of yarn, I would rather leave those open than not have a button band, right? So all that to say, we'll see how I do. I'm like curious to know if in my scraps I have any like little bits of this yarn left, but I kind of think I don't. Like I really think I did the whole bell mullet and I only had one partially used skein left over. So we'll see. It's a Malabrigo yarn. This is Malabrigo worsted in water green. It's not, there's no dye lot anyway. And if I really had to go, I could probably find this at a yarn store or in a D-stash if I needed to. So I'm not worried about it because it's not like a scarce yarn. So there's that. That is a size 3. Which is supposed to be for like a 36, I think it's 33 inches around, it's supposed to be for a 36-inch bust. And yeah, it's supposed to have negative ease. It looks really little, but it will block out a little bit. And also I'm not to size 3. So to me, it feels really small, but I think this looks appropriate for her. And I think I'm pretty on gauge. So I think my row gauge is a little bit tight actually, even though the armhole looks big. So I'll just be sure when I'm blocking to really block to measurements, but like a brioche relaxes in both directions. Just like by the nature of it when it blocks. So I'm not really concerned. And if before I block it, it looks really good, I may just steam block it or just like be very careful when I wet block that I'm not stretching it too much. So I only have one cast on this week. The other things I wanted to cast on, which I did not, are socks for my mother-in-law for my February sock. I do need to do that, and I need to do it like tonight. I just had been putting off picking the pattern, but what I've decided to do is essentially do kind of a similar to a DRK Everyday, but I'm using the recipe from Summer Lee's sock project book for the toe up Fleegle heel because I've not done a Fleegle heel yet, and I want to do one. I want to do one for me too, but I'm gonna just experiment with this one. But I want to do a ribbed sock, and I want to do a ribbed sock like just because I want to do something different, not because I think my mother-in-law needs a Fleegle heel, you know what I mean? But I want to try it, and so and see how I like the actual knitting process. So, and her foot is similar size to mine. She's just like slightly shorter. So I am going to do a toe up, a mix of her like basic rib and her toe up Fleegle. And I'm going to do a toe up Fleegle with rib across the top, not the whole sock like a DRK Everyday. And then the whole cuff ribbed. So that's what my plan is going to be. And then I also wanted to cast on my Uptown pullover, and I did not do that yet, but I will do that this weekend because I really want to have it. And I finished one of my Make 9, and so I figured I'm going to, again, prioritize those Make 9 makes. So, okay. So I will do that, but as you can see in my hands, I did cast on my Dolan. And so we've talked about this before, but this is a preview knit for Woolfolk and Taylor Ann Knits. And there is already a knit along happening, and I am in that. It's on Slack, which has been pretty fun to see people knitting this. This is a sort of an interesting construction. I would say this is like a contiguous construction, and maybe it is technically, but there is less of a shoulder panel so much as a shoulder seam happening in this, but very similarly you cast, I actually, because this has a collar, I did the collar first in double knit, so this is a really reminiscent to the Verna tee that I did this summer. So I did the collar, and then you put in stitch markers and you double knit, like, or you knit together most of the collar, though this one, I think for the Verna I knit together all of the collar stitches, and this one I did not. For some of them you keep a single stitch, and because just like of the openness and how big it becomes. So but you put markers, and essentially you can see them here. I have 2 markers here around a single stitch, and you can't see it as much, but maybe a little bit, but there is definitely like a line here that is sort of the shoulder seam. And so I'm building on either sides, and it does build in a more rectangular fashion then, because you're building yeah, like just on a circle. I mean, and raglans kind of look like rectangles too if you really lay them flat. So I'm building the separation here of my front and back on both sides. So this is my back as it is going to be, and then this is my front. And then eventually what happens is just on this side of the needle, and I'm not here yet, though I'm pretty close, I will separate the two. And that'll be the top of my shoulder. And what I'll end up doing is I'll just keep knitting this front part and knit down to where you would join. You knit the back part, and then that's why y'all have a set and sleeve. That's why it would be different than this knit here, because you just rapidly created the shoulder in this knit because I did it in the round. And this one, because I'm not doing it in the round, I need to separate the front and the back, and then I'll make a set and sleeve and join them underneath of the armpit. So that's what will happen. So I will get to that very short order. But I wanted to get through the short rows and get to where my fronts are fully joined. And you can kind of see here. So I have a collar that's going down the front, and the way that this collar goes is like, it's kind of making like that little, it'll have that little V cut. So it's a collar here that's separate from the like side collar, but that also sits up pretty high, so it's got like kind of an open piece here. You'll see this from the pictures that had flashed up before, but yeah, I can see the difference between like, this is the purl side and this is the knit side, but this is really, really, really fluffy boucle yarn. So another boucle, this is FB16. This is Woolfolk Flet, bulky. They do have a flet yarn, so which I think is more of like the traditional DK, the really soft. Also, I have felt that one before, but this is so soft. And as a reminder, like, this is what it looks like. It's a really bulky boucle. It is 131 yards for 100 grams. It's 100% Ovis 21 Ultimate Merino wool. It's got a double strand. We've talked about this before for like strength and stuff, of that the boucle is wrapped around. But yeah, and this is color 16, which I think is called Seafoam. So really lovely knit so far. I am just taking it slow, though I want to be knitting with the group, right? I don't have there's a timeline for the knit along. I don't have to finish in the timeline, but I do want to have this. I think it will be like a fun layering piece. I'm doing the short version, for this like wintry timeline. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. This didn't take terribly long to knit up, and that is the hardest part, is doing those short rows and kind of making sure that you catch everything and that you have the right numbers and all of that stuff. And so now that I'll get into, very shortly, like I have a couple more increases, and then I'll get into just the front and back pieces. That should go a little bit faster, because it's about this, not quite the same amount, but it's about the same amount of stitches across all because of the collar. So here we are. We'll keep going along. I'm hoping, I don't have too many set goals on what I'm going to be doing this week, but I do kind of hope that I at least get to one of the fronts, and maybe even complete a whole front, because again, I don't think it'll take that long with just the row gauge and everything. Okay, so we haven't talked about size or anything yet before, but I am making a size 3, which is small, not typical for me, right? But this is a 52.75 inch finished circumference. So this is recommended to have like 10 to 18 inches of positive ease, which is a lot. I think she might say on the Ravelry page or whatever, in like larger sizes, choosing less ease will still give you a similar look. Regardless, this does go up to 72 inches in total, but like that really big open jacket look, this is another one of those where I am going to err on the side of less ease for me and how I like to wear my knits and my body type. So I could have gone up one more size, and I think with the amount of yarn I have, I still could, because the way that the sizing is working out, I'm basically knitting the same size right now. It's until I get to like the last part of the repeats is when I add those few extra stitches to give me some more room. So what I will do is, right before I decide, so right now I'm thinking I'm a size 3, is I'll double check my gauge. If I'm even a little bit like big on gauge, which the advice from Woolfolk is to also not wet block this, because it would take 100 years to dry, but also because it's jacket, etc., but to steam block this because of the way the boucle plays when blocked. I think you can fully wet block boucle, just as a side note, but I may just steam block this one, and I don't think I will get as much growth. So I will check my gauge again. I did do gauge swatches for this, but I went down a needle size. So I'm using a 5.5 for the body right now, and I think I used a 5 for the double knit. And I just double knit big, like even in regular yarn. So, because I hate it. I hate double knitting. I want to love it, but I just find it annoying. And I've like doubled an entire blanket before I realized I didn't like doing it. Anyway, so if I'm looking even a little bit big on gauge, I'll stick with 3. If it's looking a little bit tight because I've tightened up with more stitches, I may go up to the 4. I may go up to the 4 because I want a little bit more room, and it'll just be like, I don't know. I'm really thinking, and this is an open jacket. I'm really thinking I might just stick with the 3. We'll see. We'll see how I feel this weekend. Anyway, and it's a pretty big gauge. It's like 14 stitch gauge in the body. So I think that's all I have to say about that one. Let's go on. And that's the only other knit. Okay, so I want to cast on still this weekend my socks, my Uptown, and very possibly my Salty Air Tee. And if not that, I may cast on another one of my Gift Make 9, which will be something for Theo. I just haven't decided how I'm feeling about all that. We shall see. So let's talk about my spin really quick. I do have a spin on the wheel, now off the wheel because I have it in my hand. But this is 2/3 of 1 4-ounce braid. Let me show you the second braid that I am going to be doing. And this looks pretty similar to the first braid, though this has a little bit more red in it. This is a Yarn Jam Shanico braid. It's 100% of the natural Shanico, which is a Merino Rambouillet crossbreed sheep. It's all of the softness and goodness that you could ever want in your life. It's so fluffy. They're really lofty spins. They just spin so nicely. I am doing mostly a short I'm mostly doing a short forward, though I'm also playing with a little bit of like backwards drafting, not a long draw, but like supported backwards drafting where I just like keep a little bit more air in. I'm touching a little bit less. It sort of depends on my mood of the moment that I am spinning. But I'm trying to keep consistency to, again, a pretty thin spin. This is looking pretty thin. It's about as thin as the last one, maybe a tiny bit more plump, just because the Shanico likes to be nice and plump. But I have one more third to do. So I did the first braid, I split into 3. This braid here, which is giving me pretty long repeats. So this braid here, and also because there's more red in this, I think I might split up more frequently, maybe even double as frequent. And then I will ply them together. And I just will have a 2-ply, and I'm hoping that I have a 2-ply fingering weight even, which will give me like 2 full 4-ounce skeins of yarn. Which I'm hoping gives me about 1,000 yards, maybe a little bit less than that, like 900 yards would be nice too. And I don't have any particular plans for this, but I did want like more fingering weight yarn. So it might be a shawl, it might be a t-shirt, or like a tank top. That would be really cute. I am not determined, but I knew I wanted to spin this week because this is my Valentine's spin that I bought for myself, and it just like shouts Valentine's Day to me. This is the prototype, so this is one of a kind. This one was like 12 point something, and this is 12.14, and this was the prototype for Tori Yu's, like the color that Trisha made for Tori Yu's Curiosity hat spin. And so I have very similar things to that, which also means I know I can, if I needed a complementary color, if I want to do color work, just depending on what I feel like, I could get a sport or fingering probably weight yarn that will match from Trisha. She had that pink color that she made for Tori, and also she has like a red, I'm sure that would match too. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I'm kind of thinking like a tank top would be really fun in these colors, and yeah. But it's really squishy and nice, and I really like it. And either way, it's gonna sit on my shelf for a little bit, and that is okay. So yes, more to come. I don't know that I'm going to finish the whole spin this week. I would really like to finish this this week, this bobbin, and let it rest, and then start the next one, so I'm like, you know, staying on the same thickness and cadence and stuff. And I'm really loving a little extra time to spin every day. And so yeah, I would like to do that. I want to spin through more of what I have before I buy more fiber this year, and not to say that I won't buy like a couple of braids here or there, but I do want to maybe get another sweater quantity, and I have what I want in mind. But I have a bunch of fiber coming to me whenever Coley ships out Taylor Swift. So there's that. So I'm going to plan, not that I'm going to spin like crazy and only be spinning or anything, but I am going to try to spin through some of my older stuff. So like some of this I bought for my birthday, not this past year, but the year before, like all of this. These are double quantities. These are both 8 ounces. And I think maybe this will be my next spin. Maybe this, or maybe my cotton, because I do want to try that definitely before flock. So I know if I want to grab any more, and I want to finish this and maybe even, I don't know, maybe knit something up with that so I can like see how that cotton feels, just like as yarn, what I even want it to knit with. And then I've got like, I just have a bunch of other things, and some of them have projects attached to them and some of them are just for vibes. And that's okay. I can keep filling in this shelf here. I do have like some of these projects I want to get to eventually. And yeah, we'll see. We're spinning for fun over here. Okay. This week I have no yarn acquisitions, which is great. As it should be. I do, as I said, have yarn coming for a baby blanket, etc. And if it gets here before next week, I will talk about it. If not, we'll talk about it after. Okay, so it's time to talk about books. I read a few this week. I'm still reading that Kelsie Haas series. I only have one left. It's on hold from the library. We did skip to another family of people. We did all the things. Okay. So just as a reminder, the okay-ish romance books, I like them for the most part. They are all plus size women, female main characters. I do feel that I don't love all of the ways that she talks about being a plus size woman, but also just, I think like 2 things. I was talking about this with Jess this week too, who's also a big reader. One of them is, like I said last week, I think she tends to push too much on the women feeling better about themselves or whatever, just getting validation and confidence on their bodies because men tell them that they're beautiful. Okay. Second piece that I don't love so much is I do feel like a little like put off in how she describes, like in her steamy scenes, there's a little too much talking about like the women's bodies, like in a way that I don't really love. So anyway, it's just, I don't love them. I don't love them. I like them enough that I will keep reading them. So this week I read 3 of them. And there's only one left. So this was like 5, 6, and 7, I think. So Hello Doctor is the first one I finished, and this one is about the sister of the family that we were just in. So we're still in Texas in the really small town, and that's like where I think mostly where this will finish out. And I wonder if there's gonna be more, honestly, because there's still 2 other brothers in the second family we joined. Anyway, so there is a girl, the sister of the last family we were in, that has like the billionaire brother, and that was the last book. And she works at like a feedlot, and she just moves back in with her parents because she quit her job because her boss is like a sexist pig. Great, good for her. But she needs a job, and she's in this really small town, and that's hard, right? And she gets a gig nannying for the new to town doctor, but he's just back again from living in Dallas for a while. After his divorce, he has a 10-year-old daughter, and he is like her high school crush, and she unknowingly is also his, but he is best friends with her brother, who told him to stay away. So there's all these kind of mixed emotions in the past and all these other things, and the kid is a big part of the story. I do like how she does that. It's like she doesn't make the kids super one-dimensional or like not important. If you're blending families, the kids that exist already are really important. So yeah, that's Liv and Fletcher. Anyway, that one was pretty good. I liked that one. Hello Heartbreaker. Now we're on to Liv's last brother. So that's the complete of the Griffin family. And so Rhett is having his story, and it's about the one that got away. So it was his high school sweetheart, and she's back to town. because she wants to take over the salon, which is where she first worked, and she like went and got a lot of experience, and then yeah, now wants to own the salon, and like the salon owner wants to sell to her. And her entry back into town is loud and splashy for him, and he very from the outset like he wants to win her back. It's not like, oh no, she's back and I'm mad about it, and then they rekindle. Like, he's trying to win her back. So it's a fun story, and he's kind of become a playboy in the absence of her, and you learn a lot about yeah, like him, and like he's kind of like a fun character that was in like the other last 3 books or whatever, and now he's got more depth, etc. And so the 7th one, which is the one I just finished, and I finished one book in between, but I will talk about this one. It's called Hello, Tease. I hate the title of this one because like these other ones make sense, this one not as much. And yeah, anyway, I don't, because like all the other ones are mostly like a descriptor for the man, right, in the book. So like the single dad, the fake boyfriend, the temptation, okay, yeah, that makes sense. The billionaire, the doctor, the heartbreaker, all of those make sense. The Tease doesn't make sense because this is about Knox, who is Fletcher's brother. So now we're going through the Madigan family, and there are 4 boys, I think, or 5 total. This one doesn't make sense to me because it's like in her, I don't know, there's nothing about Knox in this that he's a tease. He is like straight up the best guy. He's the local town cop. He was kind of like on a bad path as a kid, and then cleaned his act up, and now is on the right side of the law, yada yada. But he is a really like solid dude the whole time. So I don't know why this is Tease. Anyway, he is the neighbor to a newly divorced mom of 2 kids who moves to town because her ex's parents will actually help take care of her kids, and she doesn't have any family because she has to go back to work. And there's a lot of mixed feelings about that whole situation. And then he comes in and he's really great with her kids and yada yada. And she decides she can open her heart up for love again. It's a pretty cute one. Overall, this one was like a little less angsty to me than the others, and I really liked it. Again, these are okay-ish. I'm not gonna rave about them being so good, but they're very solid contemporary romance books. I'll have to find a new contemporary, maybe some standalones to sprinkle in here in a little bit, but I am going to start my Sarah J. Maas reread, like possibly next week. Probably not this weekend because I have one book I'm still eyeball reading, which I want to finish and I'm pretty close to. And then the first part of the series I'm reading for Sarah J. Maas is actually, I've never read, this is the only book of hers I've never read, which is the short stories collection, which is called The Assassin's Blade. And I am going to read them because chronologically it's first. And so because there's no spoilers for me, I don't need to read it after the 3rd one or whatever. But I am reading Throne of Glass, then ACOTAR, then Crescent City in that order, as what my plan is. For like most of this year, I'm going to just kind of do a slow roll read, maybe very quick. Who knows? I don't know. But I am going to start with this one. And it's like the only one that I don't own on audiobook too. So, and I could buy it, but I'm not gonna because I have the book version. I just need to read it. So let's talk about the next book I read. And maybe also I want to pause to start those after I finish this fantasy series, though. Yeah, I don't know. This one might only be a trilogy, but this is called The Witchwalkers, the series by Charissa Weeks. And it is, the first one's called The Witch Collector. You'll see here like the book cover. I've seen this before because I think it's always available. I do that search sometimes on like what's available in audiobook and then in a genre, and this shows up both in fantasy and romance. And so I've seen it before, but like maybe the title or maybe the cover is like off-putting to me because I don't know, there's something about it that I was like not that interested in. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I have been following a new girl on Bookstagram, and she recommended this series. Like the way that she recommended it, I was like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty fun. So the series is essentially a not Hunger Games, but like the very beginning of Hunger Games where somebody gets selected and then pulled from the town. that thing is what's happening in the very beginning. And you don't know much about what they're getting selected for, except for like, essentially it's like army duty where they are witches, and it's called, like they're called witch walkers. That's what this series is called. But they sing their power, and are protecting the boundary of their land, and you don't know much else and whatever, and you join the main character who cannot speak, and she is still a witch, but it's kind of like a hidden power that she does through sign language. Like her mother taught her a form of sign language, and that is still enough for her power to work if she speaks with her hands, right? And the witch collector is the person that comes and gathers them, and she, from the very beginning, so I'm not spoiling anything because this is like her first mission, is she thinks that she wants to kill the witch collector. But on gathering night, something unexpected happens, and then they become like an unwilling duo to help save their homeland. That's all I'll say. It's kind of vaguish. It was really, really good. I really liked it. I think that she's done enough for even in the beginning, for building like the world. And she is kind of sheltered, this main character, and so she tells you what she knows, and she's learning a lot from, you know, side characters who have like been around a long time or whatever, or know more history than she does, that she was been told through like mostly oral history in her small town that doesn't have a lot of books, and you know, that kind of thing. I appreciate when that is how characters learn about the world and how you learn about the world, which like in an epic way is what happened with Wheel of Time, right? What I don't love, this is one thing that I'm gonna say, is like, I was talking about this with Jess too, is like, what bugs me, I think, about a world like the Empyrean series, so Fourth Wing, which you know, I read not long ago, the third one. And something that bugs me about this is like, you're learning a ton of stuff in like the third one, especially about like the world and the gods that didn't come up at all in the beginning ones, and maybe was hinted at. But what bugs me about that is like, you're learning about them through the main character, Violet, who's supposed to be a scholar and should have known a lot of these things, and maybe she knows them and she's telling you then, but then it feels like a cheapened way, or like a more annoying way to learn about things, because she already has the knowledge and then is like telling you through meetings or whatever, or she's learning them and I feel like she should have already known them. When you're learning about the world and more things are being revealed to you in a fantasy series about either the magic system or the world and politics, because you're with a sheltered character, I buy that. Okay. And I think that is like a easier way to stomach like learning something that's a surprise, if that makes sense to you. Okay, so those are the 4 books I read this week. So far, and I can't recommend the whole series because I haven't read it, but I really liked Witch Collector. I thought it was really, really fun. Okay, not a wholly shorter episode this week, but hopefully a little bit shorter here. I don't really have much else to share. I've got some cast on plans. Don't forget, join us on Discord, find me on Ravelry, find me on Instagram, give us a like below, all of the things. What I would like to know from you this week, if you've stuck around this long, as always, is I want to know what you're making. And I also want to know, this is like a random question, but something I thought about this week is, because I'm doing my like Valentine spin and I've been thinking about knitting pink things, like, and I even like had this thought last week, even though it was way too late to do anything. Should I knit something for Theo for Valentine's Day? No, she doesn't care. This is not a holiday that means anything to her yet. That, you know, once she's like in school setting is when like kids get excited about it. But my question is, do you get this like random holiday feeling? Obviously, I know if you celebrate Christmas or any of the winter holidays, like that's a longer ram time that I think you like maybe plan and look forward to longer, especially if you're gift knitting. My question is, do you plan for any of these other random holiday knits? Like, do you want to knit for 4th of July? Do you suddenly feel like patriotic colors are a thing? Do you want to knit for Easter? Do those spring colors call to you? Or like there are particular things you want to make around that season? Do you like, I've never heard of anyone really having Thanksgiving knits, though Andrea Mowry does that like thing. But like, what about Halloween? Do you get all crazy to knit like Anne Halloween colors, or like, is it just fall vibes? I just like, I want to know, like, do you get this inkling? Because I had this very random Valentine's Day pink inkling this year. And I don't remember ever feeling that before, though I have done some like pre-Easter projects and that kind of thing. And you know, I may again for Theo just like get that. I do get kind of like color excitement for spring, and like summer not so much though. Like I'm not in the patriotic sense, but like in summer colors, in brights, in those kinds of things. Though I do want to do some black knits for summer this year. So like just, you know, what kind of excites you for those things, or do you just feel seasonal? I want to know your opinions. What are your feelings and thoughts on that? And also, what are you knitting on? What have you been knitting on? Did you do any knit chores with me this week? I always want to know. Yeah. And please let me know below all of the things. I am always available for questions on Instagram or through comments below. I try to get to everybody's comments within a couple of days. I love to hear from you guys and stalk you on Ravelry, etc. a little bit. But yes, you know, I love the community. And so, yeah, if you want to join our Discord, we are posting pictures of projects over there, both, you know, mid-project plans and also finished makes, and doing our monthly calls, which will come up pretty soon. I will let you know down below too, like the date of the next one. So I will talk to y'all soon. I hope you had fun and that you got some good knitting in. I hope you have a really great week, weekend, night, whenever you're watching this. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.